Okay, I think we can start now. Welcome everyone to this new Geshin event, and thank you all for joining us. For those who may not know us, we are a student association at Ca' Foscari University of Venice within the Department of Asian and North African Studies. We usually organize events related to Japan or more broadly to Asia. Today we have the honor of welcoming Professor Meng as our speaker. He is a professor at the Graduate School of Humanities and Social Sciences at Hiroshima University. And in today's talk, he will discuss socially embedded and revitalization engaged art in rural Japan and China. Thank you very much, Professor, for being with us today. Without taking up any more time, I will now give the floor to you.
Okay, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, good. I would say good morning from European time and also good evening from Japan time and Asian Pacific. A lot of people know me as Mo, or my Japanese name pronunciation is Kyomo, so a lot of people call me Mo. So today I will talk about a little bit about social engaged art in East Asia. So allow me to share my screen. Okay, should we share the screen? Hmm? Okay, if it's okay, can you see my screen? Okay. Right. If you have any technical issue, please let me know. So I will try to uh, first of all introduce myself a little bit. So a little bit confusing about my affiliation because a few weeks ago I just moved from Hokkaido University to Hiroshima University, and I'm still kind of collaborating with Hokkaido University. I will explain a little bit about my background. Back to last 3 years, I work in Hokkaido University Center for Tourism Studies. Basically, we are doing global project not only in Japan. Blue one is research, green one is more partnership, destination promotion, and also orange one is ODA project. Uh, yeah, and also in the past, how I meet Anna is through this graduate school and media and tourism. But very recently, I moved back to Hiroshima University. Especially, we have 100% English program for undergraduate course in Japan, which allow Japanese students become more global and allow more international students understand Japan better. I think from this perspective is quite similar like a Gasshin association. So yeah, we call it IGS, Integrated Global Studies. So a little bit of background about me. My research keywords is tourism geography. So probably a lot of Japan study people is from anthropology, from culture study, from history study, but I'm more from a tourism and or geography perspective to do research in Japan, especially focus on art festival and a creative tourism perspective. And I'm also managing 8 academic journals, a lot of them from island study, a lot of them from tourism study. Yeah. So I'm also doing kind of helping Hokkaido University Center for Tourism Study doing this online forum series. Is also like our YouTube channel for knowledge sharing. We invite scholars about community study as well as tourism study around the world to join our online society. So I'm currently still managing this and will be continue managing this channel. So back to our topic of today is about how art bring changes in regional area in Japan. A lot of our audience probably familiar with what kind of issue in global north country, especially in Japan, the most serious depopulation issues happen in the region. So before we move to rural Japan, I want a little bit very briefly about art history. So we all know art. I think Italian audience are very familiar what is art, what is fine art, and what is contemporary art, mixed with the modern art, and also art's transformation into public art, right? So simply speaking, a milestone back to 1960s when artists started trying different material and different way to deliver a message. It's not really about the standardized white box system in the past. And after the 60s, people started trying to bring some social movement and social scenario into the exhibition. For example, by pouring water or do some daily life activity inside the museum or in front of the museum. So in the early 2000, we really see a trend of people trying to bring a movement or a site back to the art space. So it's not really a beauty or a appreciation of art. It's more like how people want to share an idea, want to recreate a scenario, a moment, allow the audience to think more. Then 10 years ago, art is more into everyday life. It's a shift from the high culture into pop culture and everyday culture. From here, art start to talk about practice, social practice, and how to bring community and make changes. So from this, uh, yeah, art become more debatable. In the past, art is only belongs to some culture elite, but now art can be accessed by everybody, and art can also bring change outside, even beyond the art world. So therefore, Japan is really like to catching up the westernized contemporary art world. But I will talk about Japanese art later. They really like to follow all kind of a Triennale, Biennale, this kind of model, but at the same time, Japan also developed their own style. Uh, yeah, especially in the recent 20 years, they try to using art to make tourism. Then through tourism, they try to revitalize depopulated area. Basically, using art to bring people to the middle of nowhere, then try to make connection and try to make meaning through this process. And my colleague Simon from Hong Kong Chinese University used the term revitalization engaged art. I think is very accurate. So today's topic is about social embedded art. So that's based on what the idea from a social practice and social engaged art. So yeah. So another, if you ask me to summarize art history about art revitalize area, I would just simply introduce three case study as our background before we go to actually what art can do in rural Japan. So first case, I think a lot of European audience might familiar with the Bilibao effect and what we call the Guggenheim effect. So whatever no matter in Venice, no matter in New York or in Bilbao, if there is a Guggenheim Museum, there will be visitors and a lot of them. People, I'm not sure I can call them art tourists because according to my research, there is no single group of people can be called art tourists. It's a very complicated topic. I think, but we can see a pattern from Bilbao is based on the urban area. Art has a power to revitalize the city. Then from Mona case, Museum of Old and New Art from Hobart, Tasmania, art can also show the power can bring visitation in the suburb area. And according to my field work in Japan, the Setouchi Triennale, basically I researched this Triennale. I need to correct, it's not 2022, it's already 2026. I studied it more than 10 years. So we can also see art can bring people back to rural area, try to revitalize these regions. So first, let's start from the Bilibao effect. So I actually visited Bilbao a few months ago, last December. So I actually witnessed the current development of Guggenheim intervention into this city. Of course, without Guggenheim, probably Bilbao will disappear and lose its young population, and the city will lose its major industry, right? So that's how artworks inside Bilibao looks like. We know it's a world-class ranking collection since my lecture is not an art class. I will not introduce the artist and artwork too much. Instead, I will looking at it from social science perspective. So on the left side is the Louis Bourgeois spider, very famous art. We can see it everywhere in the world in the famous museum. On the right picture, it's one local artist made street art right in front of the Guggenheim Museum. This artist is very smart. He use basically using the window of Guggenheim Museum try to sharing local narrative. So I'm more interested in this kind of a conflict place in the same area, basically behind the spider. So that make me thinking how local exactly think about the Guggenheim Museum. So the reason I come to Bilibao is invited by the Basque government. Basically, some of you might familiar Guggenheim Foundation plan to build a second museum in the very small town, has only 200 people. Also is a UNESCO designated biosphere area, nature protected area, called Wurudabai. And before they actually make the project, they want to listen to communities' voices. So therefore, there is a research center in Basque basically taking care of this challenge. So this is how the biosphere looks like. Imagine if we build another Guggenheim museum every year, they will bring like 14 140,000 tourists visiting this area. The damage for the environment and also the potential over-tourism issue caused by tourists for a community has only 200 people. So therefore, we had a 3-day workshop and a social listening with the 33 mayors and two vice uh, prime minister. So during this process, we also observe some social phenomena because local have a really strong identity about what a Basque country is not a part of Japan. It has its own culture, its own languages. But in general, we also find very shocking local voices done by local artists. For example, this is how local people believe their relationship with the Guggenheim Foundation. Wuradabai is a very small, tiny fish, but the Guggenheim Foundation is a big one. So they are eating the small fish. So that's how the reality art tourism development by big art foundation for a long time, maybe this case 20, 30 years, will eventually become this kind of a relationship. Of course, art brings a lot of good things, but at the same time, we have to pay attention to what art can also possibly bring what kind of destruction to our places, how local people think about that. So luckily, I've been invited as one of the six keynote. One is taking care of the climate change. One is taking care of transportation. One is taking care of the peace and the conflict. One is basically uh, taking care of the architect, and another expert about local market and food system. So I'm taking care of art and tourism. So we conducted 3 days meeting with the local stakeholders, and the local team done really great job. So basically, one research center around 10 people, they spent 10 months and collected 1,000 interview. I mean, 8 months, 1,000 interview. Each interview has 40 to 1 hour. So which means they collect 1,000 people opinion based on snowball sampling, which means this is not simply a quantitative or qualitative study. This become a big data level social listening with 1,000 people. Then therefore, I want to introduce this platform. It's also called the key tools. Okay, can you, if you are interested, later I will provide my slides so everybody can run it around. So basically, these tools provide, I don't know if you can see this, but this is the time of the interview. At the beginning is a very small group of stakeholder. They categorize them like an agent, project, and strategy plan. Basically, you will realize each agent, each individual are all connected because they are living somehow. This is a town council, right? So basically, for 1 year, they collect 1,000 people opinion, then they summarize by 5 category. They identified five type of people and also categorized seven category of issue: housing issue, art, Guggenheim Museum issue, tourism issue, service issue, environmental issue, employment issue, and social identity issue. So allow me to go back to my presentation. So in general, the this program identifies five type of stakeholders. One totally against Guggenheim Foundation expansion. The second category says I against it, but I also support local development. And the third category says I'm in favor of the project because we need to do something. This category are more combined by immigrants who need a job and the people who actually benefit from tourism development and art. And the number four categories is okay, is depend on how it's done. I need more details about that. And the last group of people, mostly uh, they are pension holder and also homeless people. They say, okay, my opinion doesn't matter, so I don't really care. So that's the reality, what we call locals or community in a lot of research. But this kind of way by using EU-based big data really kind of bring a lot of extra way of thinking, deeper thinking for my current research. So eventually, few weeks later, uh, the Basque government uh, and also made their decision whether by community wins. So Guggenheim Foundation hold off their second period of expansion. So in this case, community actually uh, made their decision for their future. They basically do not want another Guggenheim Museum in the region. So that's what happened 4 months ago. So I have a chance to be part of this social listening. So this is the whole team. Of course, I'm just giving some suggestion from our tourism perspective. But those are the team. They made it happen. So in this point, what kind of trouble causing by art can be done by social science right now because you are basically interfering other people's life. It's not about just making art museum and tourism. Okay, the next quick case study, I will not introduce Mona too deep. I visited Mona before COVID-19 and possibly this year or next year I will visit again and see the changes after 10 years. So basically Mona is also privately funded art development done by Paul Wash. Basically, a complicated background. These people is doing gambling of horse racing, and he won a lot of money. Then he used this to investigate private contemporary art museum. Very modernized. I guess normal tourists would spend a day to finish visiting Mona, Museum of Old and New Art in Hobart, Tasmania. So we can see Mona is also trying to organizing events. They even build their art boat to sail into their art museum. So it's a very unique experiences and also bring a lot of visitation, but also bring troubles. Gentrification issue, the hotel is getting more expensive, local people leaving this area. So similar pattern of the issue caused by art tourism happened in Australia. So this we need to pay attention a concept called art washing issue. So it could happen in Bilbao. It can happen also in Australia or even in Japan and Asian Pacific country. So that's that's a little bit background how art tourism literature start from the discussion of a Bilbao effect. Of course, every effect has both sides. It bring good job income, make a community famous into worldwide famous destination, and also bring troubles, gentrification, art washing, and press the local voices. And you see the local artist has a different message to deliver. So what happened exactly in Japan after these 20 years? They start to try to do their version of a revitalization engaged art. As on the right side of the picture, you might notice Yayoi Kusama's pumpkin. A lot of people love it, a lot of tourists love it, but most of the people don't know exactly what this artwork means. If you know what Yayoi Kusama's pumpkin works means, you can leave your understanding in the message if you want, because a lot of people treat this artwork as a symbol of pop culture instead of contemporary art. So that's something I need to I need to mention. Okay, so at the beginning, I mentioned Japan is currently facing a severe depopulation issue. This map on the left side, the red area will disappear according to Japanese politician, which means 15, 14 years later. So the only area remain populated are basically urban areas. So that's most of the community will be look like that. And under this background, Japan tried to do a lot of regional revitalization activities through agriculture, through tourism, through enhance the basic infrastructures, then also, of course, hundreds of small-scale art festival in the middle of nowhere. Uh, so my sharing today, I mainly will focus on the Setouchi Triennale in this region because I basically focus on several area and also islands because island basically has a border, easily to see the changes and their interaction between inside and outside. So the orange part is the Setouchi Triennale Art Island. This contains 12 art islands, and the yellow part has nothing to do with it because it belongs to another prefecture. They do not really uh, be part of this art development, but they also try to make their version to attract tourists. So I basically make a comparison group from the geographic perspective. So if we're looking at the area, the art is not something new. The art development actually start from 1970, when the government invested some sculpture near the sea, this kind of artwork, and also NPO base, also of course private investment of Japanese traditional art. Until 2010, they start this based on Naoshima. They start the famous Setouchi Triennale, which means every 3 year, 100 day, they bring 1 million tourists. So after a few decades, this island, of course, become famous. If you ask some Japanese people 20 years ago, nobody have no idea where is Naoshima. But if you're looking at old travel magazines all over the world, they will introduce this island. It's basically at 2021 ranked number 7 in the world by New York Times. And also two of their art museum, one on Naoshima, one on Teshima, are ranked one top 100 art museum in the world. I don't know who actually decided this ranking. Anyway, we know this island become more famous by Lonely Planet, by other travel magazines. And Shima in Japanese means island. If you search Shima, you basically will not see this kind of photo. Especially if you type Naoshima, which means literature means street island, but in this context, is all, you can only find contemporary artwork and architect. So yeah, so people might feel confused if what's going on exactly with this island, why this pumpkin become a culture symbol for this place. So I will start today by comparing the big scale art festival tourism, which are done by public-private partnership, is a little bit more top-down approach by using national funding, also treated by the OECD as a very good case study as how to revitalize middle of nowhere, how to revitalize countryside from Japan. At the same time, there is a tons of small-scaled volunteer-based or artist-based small-scaled art market and art festival. Nobody ever heard about it. So I really want to make a comparison because they have a very different purpose. It's all based on recent works. I will not really talk too much about my publication, but very important framework. How do I research this place? I basically, it's a interdisciplinary study. I basically looking at both art placemaking literature, creative and relational tourism literature in non-urban area, in smaller communities, peripheral communities and islands. Also, how rural revitalization connected with art, both art and tourism. Then I have a three merging field, both new area of the art tourism, relational rural, as well as creative geography are somehow demonstrate everything become more relational nowadays. In the art part, there is a relational aesthetic. with a very old literature based on the French art movement 20 years ago. But later development shows art become more relational because, like Bilibao, the whole community become art, the area near the art museum. So it's hard to say it's an art community, but the more discussion emphasize this place become an art site. So the whole area become part of art, even the people living there. Well, if you agree or not agree, the artist will think in that way. But from the tourism perspective, like Greg Richard and Nancy Dukes spend a lot of effort from Portugal-based or European-based literature to talk about tourism 5.0 is more relational by emphasizing learning and co-creation between tourists and the community. So it's a more like a regenerative approach. Of course, a creative tourism series still developing. Basically, want to emphasize all the community now is a networked community. So what about the rural places? And rural places, according to some rural study, people from UK and also relational geography from Marseille, every place is basically rely on each other. We can't cut rural place away from urban because in this case, all the visitors actually not from rural area. They are from Tokyo, they're from a nearby region, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and even a lot of people from France fly to Naoshima to see art. Yeah, so let's first start from Naoshima. So after I combine art, tourism, and community, the first finding is like, okay, we have 12 islands. We apply the same method on 12 different community, maybe more community, like 50 community, because each island might have a bigger community or a smaller island has only one community. But anyway, in general, none of the community develop at the same speed. That's the first thing I want to criticize because according to national media and a lot of scholar only look at the best a good case study, they will have a very positive kind of outcome to say, okay, this island is amazing. Art actually bring the tourists. They will revitalize this community. They have new shops. They have new immigrants. But okay, wait a minute. Is all the community revitalized at the same time, or some doing better, some not? So based on my fieldwork, I found out some island, these three islands, Naoshima, Teishima, and Ogijima, do relatively better than their neighboring community. Some island has no sign of revitalization, rather on pure art development. So this is very important. Well, because in Europe, in Bilibao, there is only one case study. You can never make another community to compare. If there is two towns, both receive Guggenheim Foundation and funding and building Guggenheim Museum, you can actually do the comparison to see which case is doing better. But the good thing is in Japan, there is a lot of art festival, and also within each art festival, they try to revitalize a lot of community. Like another sister project of Setouchi Triennale is Ichigo-Tsumari Art Festival. They also try to engage with more than 100 of communities in Niigata Prefecture. But in that case, there is a less of a sign of a revitalization by encourage immigrants to back to those rural area. Therefore, comparatively speaking, Setouchi Triennale is one of the most successful one by bring young people back to the island. How many of them? Probably 200 scattered around those islands. So I wouldn't go too deep to all 12 islands one by one. I want to emphasize what about the community has no funding, no power to invite artists or doing art triennale, and no funding to build world ranking art museum, no money to build art hotel. You can sleep with a painting of Van Gogh or you have a photo of Andy Warhol in your room, that kind of level of art hotel. Yeah. So what do they do? They have to base on what they already have, very bricolage and a very resourcefulness behavior done by a lot of original artists. So my first interest actually start from before the COVID-19. I visited this island. It's basically in Hiroshima prefecture called Osaki Shimojima. Basically, I like it because it's small. It has only 200 people. I think it's perfect because everybody know each other. So how to do art festival in a community has 200 people? Okay, let me remind you a little bit. Two-thirds of the people are retired. Can you imagine 200 people? If two-thirds of the people retire, which means only only like 40, 50 people still working and moving around. There is no kids, young people all go out to somewhere else, maybe in Tokyo, maybe in Osaka. So in this kind of background, nobody actually can help you to make an art festival. What do they do? So they receive government funding because it's a historical town for the outside of the building, but there is no funding to renovate inside the old houses. A lot of houses are empty because the owner is either dead or live in the island. So the group of artists decide to renovate the house inside because government already provide a beautiful outside, but inside is still need to renovate. So by inviting artists to renovate abandoned houses, they can use it to as an art gallery open for visitors. They can sell in their artworks. So through this process, artists actually knowing the place through interact with the local. And this art festival allow artists to stay in their venue and interact with the people and telling not only their art but also the town story. So we found out this kind of using artists as a volunteer strategy is really smart because you do not really cost a lot of money. Everybody like to show their artwork in a Edo period 200-year-old house. I did join the 2019 and 2021 art festival as an artist. I did some interaction art, so I really enjoyed my experience working here. But after COVID-19, they one year they shut it down. But after COVID-19, this kind of art festival developed even bigger into regional scale. So I wasn't expected such a small scale art festival can develop such faster. And just yesterday, another organizer just sent me the information of basically 2 weeks later in Osaka Shimojima, and as well as Kure City, this art festival become a more regional activity, but try to interact not only one island but several communities. So they call it Art Walk 2026. It's not a tight art festival like the old name. So they are keep developing after 6, 7 years. So because of this study make me very interested to compare what happened with the traditional local festival as well as I try to bring some students a few years ago to create their music festival. Also on the neighboring island Okamura-jima, they try to make a film festival for local elderly people because there is no cinema on the island. Most of the elderly people they have nothing to do for socialing. So basically, another immigrants from Tokyo and back to this island create a local film festival. They invite famous film director to this island to show their new works. Therefore, people will come to this island to see film. That's another strategy using events to revitalize this kind of depopulated community. And another interesting finding, I also visited some not only island but mountainous area. One is Kamiyama, one is the Kasaoka archipelago, another one is Katsuyama in Okayama prefecture. I found out some women tried to build their version of art festival. I think it's more regenerative. You see, male artists and female artists, they all have a very different idea how to make art and using what kind of material and how this art can interact with the local people. Because those art festival is very small scale, they have a less funding, but they try to use whatever they have to promote their town culture. For example, the picture on the left side is a Kamiyama, not Kamiyama. This is basically Nolan project. Nolan is a door kind of decoration done by indigo dye and other material. So basically using for business, if a shop handing the Nolan, it means they are on business today. Then these three female artists try to design the Nolan based on each household story. For example, if the household like dancing, they will put the festival and dancer picture. Another one, if they like agriculture, food, a farmer, they will put the soybean, the mame in front. So 120 households receive this artwork. Even during the COVID-19, I visited 2 times. Without interact with the tourists, locals still can show in their artwork. They can still maintain their Edo period townscape. This is very creative, I would say, using traditional culture, make it into contemporary art attraction. The same happens in Kasaoka, Shiraishi Island. On the picture on the right up, they're also using some fabric material. You can see this is very community engaged also by combining the local Bon Otori. Bon Otori is a traditional Shintoism, Buddhism community celebration. So the contemporary artist, the female creator, try to combine with the local event. So using art to enhance the local event. So this way is a community embedded kind of approach. It's a creative enhancement instead of destruction. Uh, Another good case, I would say relatively better case is a K-Air project, is a Kamiyama Art in Residence, or they also recently changed the name called Kamiyama Art in Studio or Studio in Residence program. So because this clown has no funding to invite famous artists like Yayoi Kusama with her pumpkin, so they basically provide a half-year residential program because local believe if artists stay with us, therefore artists will automatically create some work here. So we don't need to pay them too much. So year by year, after long development accompanied with a remote office, digital nomad development nearby, they basically become a art Satoyama, art kind of forest, this kind of concept. The people come here can spend a few hours, walk around and see art. You can see the art try to use local material. They do not really bring a pumpkin from Tokyo. Yeah, that's a very different approach from the bottom. And there is architect-based development on Omishima as well in Ehime Prefecture. So project Omishima is done by famous architect Toyo Ito. If you are interested with Japanese architect design, you probably know this person. And he is apparently he's very old now. This is probably his last community engaged project because he tried to revitalize this town through space, through renovating old houses into new places and provide a place for urban people interact with rural people. But he doesn't want to do tourism like Naoshima. But in the reality, they also receive funding from Naoshima Fukutake Foundation. So it's a very complicated background story. But anyway, they try to down architect revitalization in a different possibility. So little by little, I keep accumulate this kind of case study, even expanded to uh, Nagasaki, the Goto archipelago. I found out the Goto Maritime Silk Road Art Festival by emphasize local children education, as well as several cases in Hokkaido. I think I also, when Anna visit Hokkaido University as an exchange student, we also visit several art places. Each year we select different places like art sculpture park in Sapporo and also uh, last year, my client was Sapporo Culture Plaza, Culture Community Center. The topic is how to allow a non-tourism place, community space, interact with the tourists, and also some other sculpture park in the rural Sapporo. It's also quite interesting story. Also connect with marble culture. A Japanese artist traveled to Italy, so everything is relational, I would say. Yeah, also one more case study done 2022 is on the educational island and also conducting art-based culture mapping. But since today I would just emphasize art, I will not talk about this too much. Yeah, basically each island they try to do very different way to bring revitalization through creativity, whether you call it art or not art, but they try really hard. So another big topic I want to talk about, we always think about people go to art museum are art tourists, but my recent funding also is a work with a group of students, a survey in Naoshima a few years ago. And recently we run some statistics, we find a further interesting funding. So let me just show you why this topic is a matter because we don't know who are the art tourists, where they come from, why they are in the middle of nowhere to come to see art. Are they really understand art? Or they just come here because other people come, or they want artwork on social media. So what's their motivation? Uh, so we have to looking at cultural tourism paper back to 2002. They basically separate people, culture tourists in Hong Kong, as a five category based on the deeper or shallow their cultural experiences, as well as the lower is their cultural motivation. So by try to apply this way of thinking into art study, so we did a small sample survey. I also have a big sample survey with 20,000 people for the tourists who visit Naoshima, but I didn't finish the analysis yet. But I will just show the statistic finding about Naoshima tourists. So simply speaking, we find a four category of people. One third of the tourists really emphasize art. They spend more time in art museum. They don't really care about the island that much. So they are pure art lovers. The second category try to do a little uh, more on the tourism side rather than art side. They want to live in very expensive art hotel. They want to consume in the French restaurant in Japan, rural Japan's French restaurant. Try to think about that. So the third partner is more attracted by the art island atmosphere. So this kind of people can be potentially, they mentioned they want to revisit, become a long-term tourist rather than one-time visitors. But therefore, still less than 10% mentioned they have no idea why they visit this place. You see, in the reality, we meet so many different people. It's not simply say who is actually come here to see art. So, but anyway, we find some really interesting implication. So satisfaction and their experience definitely significant in terms of if they want to revisit this island and revisit those art museum or not. So we also see art tourism already combined into a mixture. The tourism part is also very important. If their experiences is not satisfied, most likely we will lose the tourists. Yeah, no matter they're art tourists or culture tourists, whatever you call them. So, uh, yeah, simply speaking, both art experiences and tourism experience matter in this case because art tourism become one. So I think in other similar cases in Japan, people talk about content tourism and travel. A lot of people use the word fan or also the K-pop traveler, the fan traveler. But I think that's oversimple concept. Who exactly the fan is? Show me who are they. So at least I show you who are the art tourists in rural Japan. So beyond the art island label, what we can learn from it. So Naoshima, uh, they they can be Naoshima because there's only one island in Japan. But the issue is if we want a sustainable approach to managing this place, because the elderly people they have a few years left before the local population run out. And currently, local quality life is still a slogan to attract people to visit those places. But imagine one day, art island without local, what kind of scenario we can think about? What should we do? Art tourism, depopulated island tourism become in a heritage. Then, what can you call this kind of art? It's a really a big question from even the motivation of the art side. So therefore, there is still more work I need to do, but I can also show you other possible solutions, how I define the term embedded under the name of art, which I interpreted social relationship making. This is a match with a relational art, aesthetic, as well as a relational tourism, as well as relational placemaking and a community revitalization. So local and outsiders, they must have a mutual understanding, collaboration, support, and also the benefit sharing. So I carry this question to visit another island in near Okinawa. It's called Amami Oshima. But I understand that one local artist project is called Denpaku at the beginning of last year. So the local people try to renovate abandoned houses into art hotel or local craft market. It must be 100% made by local for local. It's not just something attract tourists. Okay, let me explain a little bit from the tourist side. They have a very cheap accommodation, like a container room, which costs like not really a lot, less than sorry, allow me to calculate to euros, 6,000 yen. Let me think, how much euro is that? Just give me a second. So it will be 30 euros per night accommodation. You can sing karaoke and do whatever you want. If you are young, you are a student, you're traveling. At the same time, they have a few thousand euro accommodation, like you can have your own beach, or in the blue picture, you can drinking wine and sailing in the ocean. But everything connect to local culture because this boat is made by local technique, and all the accommodation are recycled from abandoned houses. And more importantly, this picture it's not a 100% tourism place. They combine a tourism facility with a local daycare center. So you go there to greeting with the locals. Meanwhile, you can buy local product, but you are into a community living space. So this is amazing because this is really blurred the relationship. What is a tourism place and what is a community place? And by in integrating the community place with the tourism place is one of their selling point. For example, so Shima, Hito, and Dagara. It means island and people. So we become a one social place. So this is not difficult to see this kind of I wouldn't say tourism and community only, but the commercial side by supporting local artists and also the non-commercial side by bring local resident benefit and also by combining these two by bringing local people the social interaction they need is a very creative enhancement approach. Okay, let me summarize what I just shared before about rural Japan. They have a big scale national brand, Setouchi Triennale and Naoshima effect. It's a more top-down combined with a bottom-up, so I would call it more new indulgence. But the small scale on the right down corner is also do their own creativity. Sometimes you do not give them enough resources. They have a more creativity from the bottom instead of just rely on national funding and government support. So there is also top-down kind of a project creativity like Omishima done by architect, but they are very small scale. So it's also interesting to see the comparison compare with if we don't do anything, nothing will happen in big scale uh, scenario like the right up kind of direction. Every rural will go back to its decline and back to nature. So both cases become a very important and valuable experiences for global countryside because not every island are lucky enough to have a few art museum and world ranking collection to attract people, and is not every island can do art festival, but the small scale cases are really helpful to understand. So next part, I want to briefly talk about art revitalization in China. Because this is a still ongoing research, I can only provide you some background. So first thing we have to understand, China and Japan are sharing very different rural social structure in terms of we use the similar term about art revitalization actually done very differently in China based on its special social background, political background. Uh, okay, so there is a term called 艺术相见 in Chinese, which means is art reconstruction instead of calling chiki kaseka in Japanese context means revitalization. I know in UK cases you call it regeneration, but in Japan mostly use revitalization. In China context is more like a reconstruction, because China tried to develop the rural area more like a urbanized way to bring modernization to this rural area by promoting local people's basic needs and infrastructure first. So later I will talk about how Chinese artists and creators collaborate with Japanese artists, creators, and do some new development together in rural China. That's also something very interesting. Yeah. Okay, so by citing my colleague's work, so socially engaged art in China is also uh, a lot of the project. Later, I will show you three category. Some are done by government support, and some done by purely artists, their own initiative, and some done by mixed scenario. So it's unlike Japan, there is no a whole region kind of supported by government and become art district. There are art district in major city like Beijing 798 art district or Shanghai Moganshan, but there is not really in rural area like a Setouchi or Ichigo-Tsumari scale. So simply speaking, we have to understand China as so many small regions like Europe. Each region share very different speed of development and also culture. Basically, the eastern side, the more urbanized side, has a faster development in terms of this kind of art, kind of a reconstruction. So my colleague Huang from Groningen University basically draw this literature. She tried to category art initiative in China into three category: artist lead model, art festival lead model, and also art village model. It's done by very different mechanism. So this is my own case study experiences in China. I think in totally I experienced 5 to 6 projects. I also know the art development and initiative. Some are quite a big scale, running for more than 10 years, and some are quite new, done in a smaller scale, similar like what I did in Japan. So Xucun art project, I start to involve this project even earlier than I start investigate Japan's cases because I done by few years of volunteer on doing art in resident program. Uh, so this is a very earlier batch of art project, similar timing like the Bishan project in the relatively urban side of China near Shanghai. So yeah, it's a interesting art in resident. They try to do education. They try to promote local agriculture product. They also try to bring people coming. But the difficulty is without local government support, is rarely can be done anything because in rural China, the government decide every development. That's basically a very different scenario compared with Japan. Uh, and then the same artist doing the Qingtian project also by bring the similar model but working on the different area in China in Guangzhou area. Now we can see the further development. This has happened also from last year in Shaoguan in Guangzhou, the third project done by the same artist group, and we also try to use this place with the creative tourism people and also island study people. We basically host a symposium 2 years ago in this area. And this is also one case study from Shandong Weifang is a Muzun theater festival. This is unlike a visual art. They try to use in local traditional performance to attract people from outside do performance as well as entertaining local. So I found a similarity like the case I just mentioned. There's the film festival in Okamura Island in Hiroshima. So yeah, this is a very smart way to promote local culture and also place branding, also promoting a place. But of course, they also limited by how do they run this art festival. There is a lot of content that I cannot share now because it's a quite sensitive content. Yeah, the organizer do not really willing to share. But I can tell you the mechanism doing even similar event in China has more difficulties than compared with doing in Japan. This is another case study in Hainan Island. Hainan is a relatively remote area compared with the other urbanized area. So this photograph tried to do a face photograph mapping of his neighborhood and community. We can also see this kind of art are more favored by local and especially local created art. Similar like Amami Oshima, local lead art project is somehow more easy to do compared with immigrants based. So we can just summarize the pattern of art project in China because China has more different issue in terms of urban-rural relationship. And unlike Japan's super aging society and depopulation, of course, China is starting facing this kind of issue. But the current rural issue in China is not only about depopulation, it's more deeper about the culture because since I have a very limited time, because China treat rural more like an agriculture unit rather than a culture unit like a Sadoyama concept in Japan. So therefore, we have to use a different kind of understanding by understanding contemporary history of China to understand China socially engaged art. But I can tell you one interesting point. The Chinese contemporary art, no matter from 1985 until now, is very political, very more like has its own system. But on the contrary, the Japanese contemporary art has really mild kind of a way to show it. Their Japanese contemporary art never be that critical. You rarely see the political layer from it. That's a very different social background. Therefore, the art intervention and their core concept is very different. So therefore, the community impact is also different. The sustainability, how long this art project in China are very different compared with in Japan. So, but recently I found out China tried to also copy something from Japan, especially I see in Shandong province, what they call the Taohuadao project. Both artists from both sides of the Seto Inland Sea and rural China start to collaborate. That's what something shocked me, because this is another level of collaboration by combining the best art resources from both uh, uh, powerful country in the Asian uh, try to do something together. Like the Fukudake Foundation also doing much bigger scale of development in Shandong province. I wouldn't tell the detail because it's just a lot of similar thing come from Naoshima in rural China now. Yeah, that's basically the original team. Of course, also collaborate with some famous artists like Cai Guoqiang, but also suddenly Kitakawa from one of the best art creator also happened in Tonglu in near Shanghai. So everything is relational. No people will just doing art in their own country. Everything become very complicated. So I will not talking too much. So that's a relate to what I'm currently doing in Hokkaido. I'm also doing some documentary instead of doing art research by listening to indigenous voices under the contemporary art world. This documentary is also launched from last year. Before I leave Hokkaido University, this is another thing worth another discussion. Art belong to indigenous people. How do they use a contemporary way to express themselves? And currently, my project is also Spain. Bilbao is one of my visit, and this summer I'm also engaging with a community embedded art, one project in Milano, one project in Venice. I continue looking forward to see if they have a more community outcome. At the same time, maybe Wakahi Island in New Zealand and the silo art in New South Wales in Australia, as well as Tasmania. I will revisit Mona to see what's the new progress of this kind of art development. Of course, China, Japan is more close to me. I will continue to observe its changes. This is my current progress. I think I just used 1 hour. I'm more looking forward to do more meaningful exchange and discussion. So if you want to download my paper, I also provide this link. You can scan the QR code and basically you can have all the publication without paying it. So I want the knowledge to be free to share here. So thank you very much for your time and listening. Mm.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor. It was really interesting. And if anyone has some question, can speak or write down on the chat. For starting, I have a question.
Mhm.
if I wanted to ask if in Japan there are some like help that the government is giving for revitalizing like
Mhm.
island areas.
Yes, that's the question. So
Mm.
how Ireland receive this kind of government funding?
Mm.
Okay, so in general, they have funding for tourism development and infrastructure, as well as supporting the immigrants from three different offices, from the land Minister of Land and Transportation, basically taking care of the infrastructure, from the Naigakufu, I think the Minister of Interior Affairs, they try to promote urban people settle down in rural area by promoting a program called Regional Revitalization Squad and Corps. It's basically in Japanese, the Chiki Okoshi Kyokutai program. Allow people to live in one community for 3 years and try if you can find something to do after that. So half of the people will stay, half of the people will kind of go back where they come from or go somewhere else. That's another policy is particularly for Ireland. In Japan now, they have a border island policy, so they give more money for people who willing to create business and tourism entrepreneurship on border island, like the case in Amami and Goto. They also received the World UNESCO World Heritage Mark, so therefore tourism seems very good potential for people to develop this kind of initiative. So that's basically the background now. But yeah, mm, I hope I answered this question. I'm also welcome people to ask different kind of question, or you can write it down if you feel shy. Mhm. Okay.
Deborah has a question. Okay, you can speak when you want. Deborah? No.
We can't hear you. Sorry, maybe.
In the meantime, there is also another question. Deborah, you can also write down the question if you want. If you
Mhm. How can I check if there is some question? Write it down. There is a. Sorry. Mm. Sorry, recently I tried to get used to Google Meeting. It's quite confusing.
okay, maybe we can. I read this question. Uh, how about collaborating with some vendors to create unique merchandise to promote these artists? Some niche tour operators might also be interested in bringing tourists to this type of community art.
Okay. Some vendors means some business, right? That I think that's more likely happen in a lot of space, but the challenge is hard to have in rural place. It's very difficult to have them in a cluster because in the urban area we are very easy to observe creative cultures, art district, and culture area. But in rural places, it's really difficult to find a lot of creative